Today I'm going to go over estimates and project pricing and what you get from different contractors and different types of contractors and things like that. I do not have a great slide deck put together today, so it might be a little bit of back and forth, but we'll make it happen. Let me see if I can get this downloaded. There we go. Okay. Cool. Get rid of that guy. So in general, I hear this quite a bit, like comparing apples to apples, getting a couple estimates. I hear a lot of verbiage that it's fine and I understand it, but it's like a quote and a bid and an estimate and a proposal. So today I kind of want to just go over how I classify those and my definitions of them, or loosely what they are, so that you can kind of understand, like I say, what I believe are important differences and distinctions when talking to contractors about pricing. So again, agenda, this is the same as I run every time, right? It's like, who are we? What do we do? We'll talk about the 3 types of contractors that I go over all the time. I want to go over those definitions, and then we'll dig into the estimates and kind of what matters, why it matters, how it affects you and your project, things like that. A little bit about me. Why should you listen to me? I've been in construction for nearly 20 years, a little bit more if you count kind of growing up in it. And, built custom homes, worked in commercial construction, did some facade and roof, and building envelope consulting for a while. Sold roofs out in the Midwest. I've kind of been all over the place as it relates to construction. Also had a fair amount of construction injuries, one being a major one, and learned a lot of lessons along the way. And now we focus specifically at Northbuilt, a company that we own and operate here in the Denver Metro. We focus primarily on bathroom remodeling. So I talk about bathrooms. I like bathrooms. We do bathrooms. And it's what we're good at. It's what we're building the team around. So what we structure everything else around is remodeling residential bathrooms. So that's what I focus on now. That's what we focus on probably for the foreseeable future and where we're headed. So just a quick glimpse of a few projects we've done there. We kind of run the spectrum. In theory, we like to treat small projects like big projects. We like to plan them well. We like to execute them well. Bring in the right trades and the right people to put together really great spaces for our clients. You use a bathroom a lot, multiple times a day. Depending on the day, the time of year, the season, what's going on, like where you're at, what you're doing, things like that. So I think it's important to have a clean, safe space that looks great too. And that's kind of where the focus for bathrooms comes from and why we're working really hard on being great at those. And I say this a lot during, like, even when I'm just talking one-on-one with clients, I have kind of 3 core objectives, and today is no different. I want to educate you on kind of what I've learned and how it's supposed to go. Again, specifically bathroom modeling is what I really hone in on, but it'll give you a general overview to disregard that. If you have a different project, it could still be very helpful in the sense of understanding a deeper understanding of the estimating process. Options. What can you do? What can't you do? A lot of times that can be applied in a few different ways, but it's like understanding from a professional, from an expert, what should you look for? What shouldn't you look for? What's out there? And then at the end, it's like how to make the decision that works for you. Not everybody is a fit for everybody. Like it doesn't work that way. Our service at Northbuilt doesn't apply and doesn't fit everybody. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But understanding what you're looking for, understanding what's out there, understanding how it's put together and how it works, and then being able to make the decision that works the best for you is always my number one goal. Always. If that happens to be us and we're in the, in a project for you in the Denver Metro, then great, let's do it. And if not, then hopefully, like, share, comment, tell somebody about this video, tell somebody about us, and that'd be a great way to pay it forward. So that's the goal today. The 3 types of contractors, right? Contractors are not commodities. They're not all the same, but in general, I like to group them into 3 buckets. And these are the 3 types. Bob the Builder, old school, his way or the highway. He's very reactive. He doesn't have a lot of systems or processes. He usually operates with his phone and his brain and maybe a couple pieces of paper. Probably got some long-standing relationships, might have some great trades, might not. It really just depends. I tend to say avoid that style. That is a personal preference. I've worked around those guys. There are plenty of them who are great guys. There are also plenty of them who are just really challenging, especially from a homeowner perspective, to work with. And I just don't think a remodeling project is hard enough. I don't think you need to make it harder. I just don't feel that. So I tend to lean towards avoiding a Bob the Builder scenario. Dynamic duo, I call them Jack and John. I think they're worth considering. I used to be a dynamic duo. Brett and myself used to be hands-on. We used to do a majority of all the work. You can get a unicorn scenario. And what I mean by that is you can have a team of 2, maybe 3, who are really, really good at what they do. They've been doing it for a long enough time that they understand how to do it, and they don't want to grow or change. I think the challenge is, especially in our industry, is after you get to that point, it usually takes some time. And then by that point, you kind of want to move into a different level. Like, you want to move up, you want to have a team. You maybe don't want to swing the hammer as much. And at that point, the unicorn scenario kind of falls apart. So they're usually younger, up and coming. They tend to be fairly trustworthy in the sense of, like, they'll treat you right and they'll do the right thing. The downside to that is they may not know what the best thing to do, right? The trustworthy thing and the correct thing, or the expert solution, they might not have the knowledge or the expertise to do that yet. A good example would be, I hear about this a fair amount, is it's like, we've got 2 guys, they're going to do the work, and then they're going to have, their cousin pull the permit or something like that. That I see that quite a bit, and that's okay. But that's always like, okay, well, why can't you get your own license? It's like, well, couldn't pass the test, didn't know enough, doesn't have the experience, doesn't have the years, like, whatever it might be. So in our situation for bathrooms, the dynamic duo can be great. Like, it really can. I think they tend to also come with a little bit of, they can be challenging to get a hold of. Their system and process isn't really lined out or dialed in. But they'll, like I say, they'll put you on the list, they'll get you, they'll do it, they'll do a good job. It comes with other things that you have to deal with that aren't as streamlined or as good, in my opinion. Professional remodeling team, that's us. Obviously, I recommend us. I've been doing this for a long time. The team is really great. We have a process where we're very defined in how we run projects. We are very aligned across our team and our trade partners and our vendors on what we're trying to do and how we do that. And then if something comes up, we have a lot of resources to handle any of those situations. So I think you do pay a little more for that, but you get the value hands down. So as you look at this list, it's inverted, basically. And what I mean by that is, as you go down the list, your price goes up. You pay a little bit more. As you go down the list, your risk exposure also goes down. So it's inverse, right? As you get down the list, your risk goes down and your price goes up. If you stay with Bob the Builder, your risk typically goes up and your price goes down. And that is why the dynamic duo can oftentimes look really great to most people. But there are still risks involved, and there is like that middle ground trade-off. And I think understanding the value there is always the challenge, because what I find is most of the time, the guys in the middle tend to charge more than what their value is and what they can produce. So that's what I think. So those are the three contractors. Like I always say, you can kind of bucket us into three or one of those three. Some of the pitfalls: overselling the team. This happens so much, especially with the dynamic duo in the middle. They tend to say yes to everything. Again, same with like number one and number two are very similar. So it's like, oh, they'll do a deck, and then they'll do some siding, and then they'll put in windows, and then they'll do a basement. Then they'll maybe do like, they'll paint a coffee shop or whatever, right? They'll do all sorts of stuff, and then pretty soon, come springtime, they're just like overloaded. They don't have enough bandwidth, and they get a little behind, things like that. The other one to pay attention to is the bottom: mismanagement of cash flow. Contractors, and myself included, especially when I was just starting out, understanding how to manage cash flow is extremely important and very challenging for most craftspeople because they're not business minded, and it's no fault of theirs. It's just one of the pitfalls that I see a lot of the times in the industry. And then what happens from that, specifically from the cash flow thing, is a cut and run, right? They don't have enough money to finish the job, and they just leave. Schedule volatility, that typically comes with lack of systems, overbooking, things like that. The last one, you become the project manager. That happens in all three scenarios across the board, depending on what is happening and who the team is. I've seen it a lot. So it's every type of contractor, Bob the Builder, Jack and John, dynamic duo, or a professional team like us. They're all subject to pitfalls and scenarios that I've listed here. It just depends on how well they manage their team and how effective they are at overcoming certain situations. And I also do believe that it does come with a niche. If you niche down like we're trying to do, we've noticed that our schedule volatility has gone away. We don't ever have a problem with the more money part, but sometimes the project manager part, that has been a thing for us in the past, where we've just scheduled too much, too many, and then it's like the guy shows up and wasn't totally sure what he was supposed to do. I've had this, and it drives me insane because we have processes in place to avoid it now, but they'll ask the homeowner what they're supposed to do, and that should never happen. All right, let's get into it here. I hear this all the time: an estimate or a quote. I think we should really understand the key difference here, right? An estimate it's an educated guess, and depending on the project and depending on the scenario, it can be more refined or less refined. Point in case: hey Alex, I would like you to build me a shed. Oh, okay. Cool. 8 by 10, 10 by 10, 40 feet by 60 feet. Like, what kind of shed are we talking about? What are you going to put in it? Is it for animals? Is it for cars? Is it for a tennis court? Is it to store your lawnmower? Right? Like, so you see where I'm going with this. So an estimate is just a preliminary educated guess, and I actually really like the definition, non-binding cost approximation to give a general sense of project pricing. That's perfect. That is absolutely perfect. And that's what we believe in, right? We basically have kind of three steps. It's an estimate, and ours are dialed in. I mean, ours are pretty good. We're usually within plus or minus 5%. Unless the scope changes, we're pretty dang close with how we operate on the front end to get us to an accurate pricing projection or an estimated project pricing. And then we go into project planning, which is then where we define these things that we don't know. And then we produce a construction proposal, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So those are kind of our three steps to get us into construction. Quote: a quote is typically a rather fixed price, and it's clearly defined. We're right there. Let's just read it. A firm fixed price for a clearly defined scope of work, and once approved, it becomes the agreed upon price for that scope. That's spot on, right? And so I think just knowing the difference there, an estimate tends to happen with, I would say, larger, more complex building projects. It's more of a front end thing. A quote happens, with something that's more defined, maybe a replacement project. Let's say water heater. That's always a good example. I like that one. Your water heater goes out, you call a plumber, the plumber comes out and is like, okay, yep, 50 gallon, Bradford, white, copper connections. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what else would be there. Gas or electric. They define what that is. There's maybe five to seven variables, give or take, if you really want to dial in. And they write that all out and they say, okay, we're gonna do all this. Here's your price. You can be like, okay, $8,000. Well, I'm not sure. And then the next plumber comes in and says $7,500. It's like, okay, is it the same water heater? It's like, oh no, this is a different brand. Oh, okay, is that why it's less expensive? No, this one's the same quality. Whether it is or isn't, I have no idea. But you can start to understand value a little bit more, especially if they're the exact same. So let's just say it's the exact same. Bradford White 50-gallon water heater on both sides. One is $7,500 and one is $8,000. It's like, okay, well, I think I might get more value for the $7,500. But if they show up and they didn't wear booties, they're kind of a mess, they're unkept, they sort of spilled coffee, like who knows? Like maybe you can just tell, you're like, okay, well, for the $500 discount, is it worth the risk that they're going to stain my carpet when they're pulling this water heater out, or they're going to leak all over the room that it's placed in? Like there's a little bit more than just price variable there, but it is a way, if you have a quote, that is a way to compare only price and determine if that is the factor that you want to compare across. And I think that's an important thing to understand. Another one I hear a fair amount, I didn't say it earlier, is a bid. That I can understand the confusion, and I can understand from a client perspective or from a homeowner perspective where that comes in, or where there may be like that in your vocabulary, I guess maybe is what we'll call it. But typically a bid is going to be, here's the best way to explain it. We get bids from our trade partners. So a general contractor typically will have an overall scope of work to build a home, to build a house. And in that, they will kind of divide and section out specific scopes of work, concrete, framing, dirt work, things like that. And then those scope of works will be bundled up into a package, and they will be delivered to each of those trade partners or multiple trade partners in that field, right? So might send it to 3 framers, might send it to 2 concrete guys, whatever that might be. And then those guys will submit a bid back to the GC, and then the GC will analyze that based on their overall budget for each one, and the project in general. So this is something I tend to view a bid as a piece, as a scope of work, a defined scope of work that is part of a larger project scope, right? So it is a section or a piece of that that's pulled out, that's specific to a trade, and that is typically where it happens. So you'll never, if you're a homeowner, I don't recommend requesting a bid. That's just not the right term. You are almost all the time, you're going to be requesting an estimate or a quote, depending on the type of service you're looking for. Proposal. So as I mentioned, we start with an estimate. It is an educated guess. We have some assumptions. We haven't picked everything out. We move through project planning. This is us specifically. We move through project planning. We pick out all of our materials. We define the plan set, what we're going to do as far as the work. We then create the construction schedule, the start date, where the delivery is going to come in, all of that. And then those 3 items basically can make up our proposal, which has a clearly defined, and I like this, a full project offering that outlines the scope, methodology, schedule, fixed price, and terms. So that is what the proposal should be. I believe that an estimate should turn into a proposal. And during that process, we also collect our bids from our trades for plumbing work, for electrical work, things like that, as we develop it out. So yeah, for us, you go from estimate to project planning to project proposal. Just kind of some clear guidelines there on how that works, I guess, or what that should evolve into, or how it kind of steps down. I think it's important to talk about this. I didn't realize how small this was, so sorry about that. But there are there's a few others, but primarily for all purposes on this particular conversation, there are going to be two types of contracts. You're going to have a fixed fee, and you have a cost plus. You're going to see fixed fee most often with, like, I would say relatively smaller projects. Cost plus, you're going to see more on larger projects, maybe diverse or challenging ones that have to kind of evolve as you get into certain items or things like that. We operate as a fixed fee contractor. And so, like it says, fixed fee, right? Like our price is fixed based on the deliverables that we outline, based on the scope of work, based on the material selections, all of that, right? Like it is well planned, it is well put together, it is packaged up into a construction proposal, and that proposal is a fixed fee contract, a fixed fee proposal. And I think the value in that is, if you're a homeowner and your budget, your investment level is $30,000, right? If my price to you on a fixed fee contract says $28,500, that's the price. That's what it's going to be. I think on our projects, I want to say like 93% of the change orders we've had this year have been client requests, not contractor requests, which is like, hey Alex, we actually decided we want to switch the tile to this one. It's like, okay, now regardless if that changes price or not, that is a change in the material, in maybe the scope, in maybe the install, maybe the cost as well. So that's a documented change order that was initiated by the client side. Things I'm trying to remember of one where we actually initiated a change order. And a lot of times I'll have some structure around it ahead of time, as to like, hey guys, this could become an additional cost, just a heads up, maybe yes, maybe no. I'm trying to think of a good one. Like I said, we don't have that many. Some of them have to do with electrical. Yeah, more often than not, electrical is a key one, because it's like, that's such a safety risk that it is, we got to take care of it. We just have to take care of it. We don't want a fire hazard. We don't want anything like that. We found a bunch. There's been several times where we found junction boxes. Just this last one we demoed, there was a junction box. There wasn't any exposed wires, but it was buried behind drywall and tile in the center of a wall. Like it was just there. So there's a lot of that stuff that goes on. That one we won't issue a change order. Like that's fine. We don't have to worry about that. But yeah, cost plus is basically, you say, okay, I have a loose idea of what I want to spend. We're not fully defined, but I know that the contractor is gonna show me all of the. There's a lot more transparency in cost plus, but let me put it this way: cost plus is you pay the price of the materials, the labor, all of that, plus whatever markup is agreed upon between you and that contractor. So if I was a cost plus contractor and you agreed to work together and we said, okay, we're going to try to be around $50K for this bathroom, I would usually at the end of each week, maybe every other week, I would submit to you, I think they're called an invoice report or something like that, which would have receipts attached for trade partners, hours worked from project management, project planning, things like that, superintendent, any materials. I'm trying to think if I already said that. Whatever, right? Okay, that would be all on there. It'd be there for you to see and look, and then at the bottom, it's going to have a subtotal of $10,000, and then it's going to have a markup of 20%, of 25%, and then it's going to say then it's going to say total 10,250, or 12,250, something like that. So there's pros and cons to both, depending on what you are looking for. But cost plus tends to be more transparent. However, there's not the incentive, not as much of an incentive to maintain a budget, because barring, tarnishing a reputation or being something like that, there's really no reason for that contractor to not try to get to the top end of the budget and to get to the absolute most money spent so that they can collect the fee on every single thing. That would be the goal, is to do that. On the flip side, the fixed fee, the price. You're not going to see all the detail and all the breakdown, and we run into this a fair amount. I'll show you here. I think I got maybe one more slide before it turns into nothing else. But I'll show you one of our estimates. And one thing we run into quite a bit is clients asking for detailed line items. And it's like, we don't do that. Like, it's not necessary, because the scope is defined and it's clearly written out. And it's basically like, we're going to get you a new bathroom. We're not going to spend our time and energy on that stuff. Like, it's I wouldn't call it wasted, but it's just not how we operate. We find efficiencies in saying, like, we're not going to do that because we're fixed fee. And what on the flip side of that, what that means is that price doesn't change, right? Unless you change it, that price 93% of the time is never going to change. And so there is kind of some peace of mind in that. And like, okay, my budget was $26,000. We came in at $26,300. I'm good with that. Let's move forward. That's the price I want to pay. Cool. The flip side of, or the risk on a fixed fee contractor, and this is also, you kind of have to take it in stride, is it's like, we are incentivized to move as fast as possible, and to some guys who are fixed fee, the incentive is to do lower quality because it costs less and you can move faster, you can get done quicker. So there's a balance there. And knowing what you want, right? If you're cost plus and you're like, hey, I actually didn't really totally love this, guys, can we paint it again? Sure. They're more than happy to paint it again and then charge you for it. For us, if it's like, man, that was a bad paint job, clients aren't super happy with it. Yeah, we're going to have to paint it again. Like, that's something that'll come out of our side if it's not up to the quality standards that it needs to be. So yeah, a couple key definitions there of fixed fee, cost plus. Again, different people like different ones for different reasons. I'm a huge fixed fee. That's how I buy things. That's how I like to know about it. If I'm going to go to I'm trying to think of a good example there. I think the fixed fee more closely aligns with how the general economy works. I don't go to Walmart and buy a box of soap or trying to think of something that has a few different components in it. A TV. I don't go to Walmart and buy a TV and then say, hey, can I see a breakdown of all the parts that are in here? Like you just don't do that. So I think it's kind of irrational and interesting that we as an industry have these two methodologies and that people want to see a breakdown. Same with a restaurant. You go to a restaurant and they're like, oh yeah, the steak dinner is $85. Oh, cool. What comes with that? Well, you get steak, you get two sides, you get a drink, and you get a dessert. Well, I don't, whatever the package is, whatever the bundle is. Like, okay, cool. And what are the sides? Here's the list. And we've got 6 of them, right? It's mashed potatoes, it's blah, blah, it's greens, whatever. And you're not like, wow, okay, well, how much are the greens? Well, it's part of the package. Yeah. But if I were to take that out, if I were to, cook my own greens, is that okay? Can I do that? They're going to be like, what are you talking about? And it's hard for me to keep a straight face because that's usually what I get into when I'm like, what are we talking about here? Mr. and Mrs. Homer, like, what are we talking? Like, at that point, I know they're not a good fit for us because I'm just like, we don't operate that way. I don't operate that way. I'm not looking to interact and be with clients who operate that way. It just doesn't make any sense. None whatsoever. I think it's ridiculous. And again, it comes from, I think, all this information out in the world that says, get 3 estimates and compare them and make sure that you can see a line item for everything. It's just like, no, what's important to you and how do you get to that goal? It's like you want a new bathroom and you want to pay $25,000. Perfect. You need to know those two things. Now go find somebody who's going to do that for you. So anyways, that's where I think there's a place for cost plus, and it's fine. Whatever. I don't do it. We don't do it. I don't think it should be a thing. Fixed fee. It is a fixed fee, and what you see is what you get. And knowing that hiring a great team and a good reputation, or that has good reputation and a good, good rating and good reviews and things like that, it kind of nullifies the fact like, oh, am I going to get the value? It's like, yeah, sure. If you are, I mean, like, look at all these references, look at all these referrals, look at all these other things that you can kind of understand and equate to value that are not price or not a contract breakdown, things like that. So, oh yeah, I like this. So let me see. Yeah, I guess that's a little bit. Trying to just get my head out of the way. There we go. I like this. I thought this gave a really good breakdown of just like the 6 different things we talked about, right? So estimate, is it binding? No, not typically. Detail is pretty low, pretty sparse. We've got a lot of things we've got to figure out. It's for budget guidance, right? Like, are we in the ballpark? Like I say, our estimates are typically within plus or minus 5%. Usually plus or minus 5%. We're going to be pretty darn close. And it's early on in the project, or in the state, like it says, project stage. Like, it's early on. Quote, is it binding? Yes. Details high. It's fixed price. They say pre-contract, I found this somewhere and I just copied it on here, and I was like, oh, it's pretty dang close. But honestly, the quote typically turns into the contract. Like, it just has some legal terms and conditions at the bottom. You sign it and they'll just put in that water heater. Bid, again, they call it procurement. So that is, again, like I said, it is when a trade partner is going to come to us and look for pricing out the tile work on this bathroom. That's a bid that we're going to solicit. Proposal, very high. Full project offering. And again, this is, I maybe should proofread this, but pre-contract decision. Our proposal is our contract. So, that's it. Like, that's the one. And we use that, and it's got our terms and conditions on it. And that's what we go with. Contract types in the bottom, fixed fee, cost plus. Those are the 2 primary ones you see in our industry. Certainty is high. Price certainty is high on the fixed fee. Scope requirements fully defined. Risk, contractor bears the risk, right? Transparency, I like this. Moderate, and then best for well scoped out remodeling projects. It's perfect. Nailed it. Like, that's it. That's how it works. Cost plus, price certainty is variable. Scope is flexible, so you can change things as you go. Like, if you're not sure what you want, this could work really, really well. The client shares the risk, because if you choose this and then decide you don't want it, you still pay for it. You pay for it twice. Like, that's on you. Transparency extremely high. They're going to show you everything, typically, like all the receipts, all the invoices, all the vendor payments, and they're incentivized to put everything in there, every little hour. I've seen teams bill on 15-minute increments like an attorney, because it's like they want to make sure they collect every piece of revenue for every billable job possible. Working in those firms too, I don't really enjoy, because it is so heavy on billable hours, and the focus isn't always on achieving the goal. It's on billing hours, right? It's like, well, what's the goal? The goal is to build the house, not to build the hours. The goal is to build the house. And so if you can build the house faster, better, more efficient, and everybody's happy, then like, let's do it that way. So as you can tell, we are fixed fee. I am a fixed fee proponent. I like fixed fee. I don't think I had anything. Yeah. Okay. So I was going to talk about over here, and I didn't obviously write anything on there, but something that I hear all the time is, Alex, we're going to talk to 3 people. We're going to talk to 2 people. We're going to talk to multiple teams, and then we're going to compare apples to apples. That shit doesn't exist. Like, get that out of your mind right now. It does not exist. It's not a real thing. It doesn't happen. I say apples to oranges to mangoes, because no contractor is the same. No team is the same. No price is the same. Everything is different. The value you get is different. We're all different. Contractors are not commodities, meaning that you cannot compare the price only. And that's typically what people are trying to do. And it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't, unless you have a fully defined scope with a plan set and a material list. You will never be able to do that. You just will not. And so I caution people to get rid of that and don't think of it that way. You instead, I think you should define what's next there. Define what you're looking for. We want a professional team that's going to handle everything for us because we're going to be gone for 2 weeks, and we'd love for them to knock out the bulk of this project while we're gone. Um, we're okay with paying a little bit more because we know that they're going to protect our home, protect our investment. We're going to get a great project. They have a great team. We talked to several references. We're going to get what we pay for, and we're willing to spend, up to $50,000. If you can do that, if you can talk that out with you and your partner, you and your spouse, you and your parents, whoever it is, maybe just yourself, you can write it down, figure it out. You are light years ahead of most of the clients I come in contact with. If you can define those things, you are well on your way to getting what you want. And that's all that it is. It's like, how do you get what you want out of that project, out of this project, out of that, that upcoming remodel? Like that is it. And most people do not take the time to sit down and do that. So if you take anything from this, and I've said this time and time again, is it's like you have to figure out what's important to you from a material perspective, from a scope perspective, from a pricing and a budget perspective, from a team perspective, and from an expectations. Like you have to do some legwork on that. And these are big projects. Our average project is around $50,000. Like it's a car. It's an investment. It shouldn't be taken lightly. So I implore you to sit down, put some thought into it, and really make sure that everything aligns with what you are wanting, what you're hoping, and what you're trying to achieve. And I think that is how you set yourself up for success from the beginning. Again, I know I've got a little bit of a weird slide here, but ultimately, how you set yourself up from the beginning for success is to define those things. What's the project we're doing? We're doing a bathroom remodel. What are the materials we want to use? Well, we like an oak, kind of white oak cabinet. We like the light veining, white countertops. We really like big tiles. Our bathroom, the layout can't change too much. So we're going to keep the layout. We've saved up 35,000. That's about what we've got. We could probably, take out a little bit of a HELOC for some additional if we can really get what we want, or if the market deems like, okay, we're not quite there for this project, so we do need a little more cash or whatever. Those are things to figure out in the beginning. That's how you do that. And I think if you do that before you start to look for contractors, you can easily weed out ones that aren't going to fit. You're like, no, that's a Bob the Builder. I don't want to work with that. Or vice versa. It's like, I'm looking for a Bob the Builder. I want to pick out all the material. I want to be hands-on. I have an electrician. I have a plumber. My friend is going to come over and help me lay tile. I just need somebody to really like demo and kind of do some of this other miscellaneous stuff, maybe some drywall and paint, things like that. It's like, okay, cool. You're going to run that whole thing, and you just kind of need to mix and match and plug and play. That could be perfect if that's what you're looking for, right? And again, understanding what that is the first step. That's the first step. Cool. So let me see. I'll print off, or I'll just pull up one of these guys and show you what our estimate looks like. What's pretty annoying. Oops. Let's see. Put this over. There we go. What's pretty annoying about our software is that they call it a proposal. This is not. It is an estimate. And we say that, in here, it's like estimate for, this is a big sky package. This is one of our signature series bathrooms. So we try to do that, but there's a few things in our system that we're not able to do. So as you go through this, right, you can see we have general requirements. We're going to have a pretty good detail throughout here, but you're not going to see individual line item pricing. Again, if I go back to the restaurant thing or the TV at Walmart, I don't know how much the screen costs. I don't know how much the frame costs. I don't know how much the remote costs. I know that if I buy this TV in the box and take it home for $600, I can plug it in, hit the button on the remote, and it's going to work. Like that's what I'm paying for, right? I don't know what's inside of it. I don't know if I care. I don't care. I want a TV. I want a brand new TV that's this size, and my budget is $600. Like, can I get a 50, 55, or I saw somebody the other day with an 88-inch TV in the back of his pickup, for $1,000. Can I get that? Yeah. Yesterday was Black Friday, so maybe I can. Yeah, if the deals are that good. But understanding that, I think, is a key thing, and just framing your mind around that. Like, this is we get so much of that, like, oh, line item pricing. Just it, in my mind, it's not important. Those aren't the important things. The important things is the bottom, right? It's like, how much does it actually cost? Is that the budget that I want to maintain? And am I going to get everything I want? That's the negotiation. Because if someone came to me and was like, Alex, $25,000 is a little more than I wanted to spend, would you be willing to do this? And it might be like an upgraded mirror, or put in 2 can lights or something like that maybe we didn't have in the scope. We're already there and we're already doing stuff. And I'm like, okay, for that additional cost, am I willing to do that? I could do that. And that's the negotiation that I think should be taking place, is just how do you maximize your value, or just try to reduce the overall price. Another thing that I've seen before is like, hey, Alex, when we get to the end, if I were to give you a good referral or something like that, would you potentially give me a discount? That's sometimes worth money, because it's like, okay, yeah, if you have a friend that has a project that is going to move forward, and we can be one of those competitive contractors who's able to submit an estimate that might get a project, like, yeah, that's marketing dollars that we don't have to spend on Google, on a marketing channel there, that we could potentially take off of your project in that sense. So there's all sorts of creative ways to negotiate and do things like that. All right, back to this. So we've got all of our general requirements: dumpster, management oversight, material delivery, final cleaning, and housekeeping. One thing we like to keep different is housekeeping and final cleaning. Housekeeping is going to be ram board, floor protection, plastic walls, plastic covering, things like that. Final cleaning is, we're all done, we're going to come in and we're going to clean up the whole space after it's been done. So housekeeping is during the project. Final cleaning is after the project. That's a good way to think about it. Existing conditions, pretty much just demo. So we've got demolition, standard guest bathroom. Mechanical, bathroom fan. We do that a lot. We like the Panasonic Whisper Fit, so that's in there. Electrical, right? We've got a vanity fixture over the top there. We usually have, I see we're missing in this one, but typically we'll have an electrical rough and trim. Rough in and trim out, basically, is what it means. And that, it doesn't always apply. It depends on the project, but that would be like replacing your switches, replacing the receptacle, things like that, which is pretty common for most bathrooms. We like to replace those and just make sure that they're new. Plumbing. Bathrooms tend to be fairly plumbing heavy, right? Plumbing is one of the bigger line items, or bigger sections, I should say. And so, like I mentioned, our estimate, we have shower base. We have basically 2 components for each thing. Typically, is it's going to be install and selection. And so it's like, okay, we're going to install the shower base, and what is the selection? Oh, it's a Dreamline 30 by 60 with single threshold. Cool. We've got one for both of those. So we're going to do one shower. It's going to be that, and that's how we keep track of it from a line item perspective. So it is extremely detailed, and it is extremely, I would say maybe not extreme, but it is well defined. So when people ask me for like line item pricing, I'm like, what do you need to know? We're going to install it, and this is what we're going to install. Like, are you going to do that yourself or something? Like, because if that's the case, then we're not the contractor for you, and that's okay. But that's the conversation. That's where it leads to typically when I hear someone ask me for line item pricing. So we do not do line item pricing. It's cumbersome. It takes time. It tends to lead to conflict more often than it does to like conflict resolution, maybe, or I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like typically when people see line items, it creates this thing of like, oh, well, I could buy a 2x4 for $4. You're charging me $6, and it's just like, well, okay, but I have to go get the 2x4. I have to pay for it. I have to bring it to you, and then I have to put it in. So there's all the things that go into it that sometimes when you just see some sectioned out pricing, it's not really the same. So cabinets and countertops, finishes, we kind of bulk a few things in here, but we've got drywall, flooring, paint. This is our central shower systems, so we've got that in there as well. Specialties, bathroom accessories, mirror. This is a shower door, and then we've got base trim. We always do subfloor repair in here as well. That's just something that we typically see is like around the edges of the tub or the shower, or sometimes around the toilet. We'll have some water damage, and we just basically include like a half sheet of plywood for that, because we almost always end up having to do something there. So yeah, and then we got total price at the bottom, and basically we don't have a lot of terms and conditions at the bottom, because we don't know some of these things. This is our estimate. We have some things defined or assumed, and that just gives a general sense of what's in there. Yeah, so that is a Northbuilt estimate, and that is what I recommend you look for, something along those lines. From a fixed fee contractor, having it kind of set up like that, line items, detail, and sort of the backing behind it to follow through and deliver on great quality. So, awesome. Well, hey, appreciate you watching. If you do me a favor, if you see this, like, comment, follow along, ask me a question. I like to do these kind of topics and just give some value and provide my insight on what might be helpful to homeowners and what I see, and how we can kind of do more projects and help people not get burned or not get taken advantage of, or just have a bad experience. So appreciate it. Talk to you later.